On August 12, 1944, 05:47 hours, Eastern France, south of Nancy. The Panzer IV commander didn't hear it coming. That was the first mistake, and the last thing 17 men would remember about that morning. The road through the bocage was still dark, fog rolling thick between the hedgerows like something alive. Oberlieutenant Klaus Reinhardt stood in the cupola of his Panzer IV, scanning the tree line with tired eyes. Behind him, 3 more tanks idled in column, engines rumbling low, crews half asleep after a night march from the Vosges foothills. They were supposed to be moving into defensive positions near the Moselle. Command had been vague. The Americans were pushing hard, everyone knew that, but no one had mentioned what the Americans were pushing with. Reinhardt pulled his collar tighter against the dawn cold. His breath misted. The hedgerows on either side felt too close, like walls. He hated this kind of terrain. Too much cover, too many blind corners. And then, movement. Not loud, not the grinding roar of a Sherman's engine or the clatter of tracks you could hear a kilometer away. This was different, faster, sharper, a metallic whisper that came and went like wind through steel. Reinhardt's hand froze on the cupola rim. "Contact links!" The first shell punched through the lead Panzer before he finished the sentence. It didn't explode like a typical AP round. It cracked, a single violent snap of metal meeting metal at supersonic speed, and the entire front plate of the Panzer IV buckled inward like cardboard. Smoke erupted from the driver's hatch. The tank lurched, stopped, and began to burn. Reinhardt's heart slammed into his throat. "Reverse! Reverse now!" But his driver was already screaming, gears shrieking as the Panzer IV tried to back out of the kill zone. The other 2 tanks were doing the same, turrets swinging wildly, commanders shouting into their radios, trying to spot the enemy. And then Reinhardt saw it. A shadow, low, fast, impossibly fast, cutting across the field to their left. It wasn't a Sherman. It was smaller, leaner, and it moved like nothing he'd ever seen on a battlefield. The second shell hit before his gunner could even traverse. It punched clean through the side armor of the Panzer behind him, passed through the fighting compartment, and exited the other side in a spray of fragments and fire. The crew didn't have time to bail out. The ammunition cooked off 3 seconds later, blowing the turret into the air in a geyser of black smoke. Reinhardt's voice came out strangled. "Was zur Hölle ist das?" His loader didn't answer. The boy was 17 years old and shaking so hard he couldn't load the next round. The shadow moved again, and this time Reinhardt got a full look. It was American, that much was obvious from the white star painted on the glacis, but it wasn't built like a Sherman. It was sleek, angular, crouched low to the ground like a predator. The turret was open-topped, and he could see the crew inside, helmets dark against the dawn sky, moving with practiced speed. And it was fast. Reinhardt had seen Shermans before, fought them, killed them. They were predictable, slow, easy to hear, easy to see. You could outmaneuver them, outgun them, outlast them if you kept your distance and used your better optics. But this thing didn't fight like a Sherman. It didn't sit still and trade shots. It didn't advance cautiously, hull down behind cover. It moved like a goddamn race car, darting between hedgerows, firing on the move, disappearing before you could return fire. And every shot it fired went exactly where it needed to go. Reinhardt's gunner finally got the 75M on target, but the Hellcat was already gone, slipping behind a stone farmhouse 200 meters away. He fired anyway, a blind shot that blew apart the corner of the building in a shower of dust and brick. Nothing. "Reload! Reload!" The loader fumbled with the next round. Reinhardt's mind was racing. Where is it? Where the hell is it? And then he heard it again, that metallic whisper, closer now, coming from the right. His blood went cold. "Traverse right! Traverse!" The second shell hit his Panzer square in the turret ring. The impact felt like the hand of God slamming down from above. The entire tank shuddered. Smoke poured into the fighting compartment. Reinhardt's ears rang. His gunner was screaming. The loader was on fire. He didn't think, he just moved. Reinhardt threw himself out of the cupola, hit the ground hard, and rolled into the ditch beside the road. Behind him, his Panzer was burning. The commander of the last tank in the column was bailing out, and the entire ambush had lasted less than 90 seconds. 90 seconds. 4 Panzers gone. Reinhardt lay in the ditch, chest heaving, mud soaking into his uniform, and watched the shadow disappear back into the bocage. He didn't see it leave. He just heard the engine, a high-pitched roar fading fast, like something built for speed instead of armor. And then it was gone. 6 weeks earlier, July 4th, 1944. Iraq, France. The M18 Hellcat wasn't supposed to exist, at least not in the way it did. When the U.S. Army Tank Destroyer Command began developing the M18 in 1942, the design philosophy was simple: speed over armor. The thinking was, American tank destroyers didn't need to slug it out with German Panzers in direct combat. They needed to get into position fast, hit hard, and disappear before the enemy could respond. The M18 embodied that philosophy to an extreme. It weighed 18 tons, less than half the weight of a Sherman. Its armor was thin, maxing out at just 25 millimeters on the front glacis and 12 millimeters on the sides. A German 75 could punch through it at almost any range. Even a well-placed rifle grenade could mission kill it. But what it lacked in protection, it made up for in speed. The M18 could hit 55 miles an hour on flat ground, faster than most reconnaissance vehicles, faster than any other tracked combat vehicle in the war. Its Wright R975 radial engine produced 400 horsepower, giving it a power-to-weight ratio that made it feel more like a sports car than a tank destroyer. And then there was the gun. The M1A1 76mm high-velocity cannon, mounted in the Hellcat's open-topped turret, could punch through 88 millimeters of armor at 1,000 yards. That meant it could kill a Panther from the front at ranges where the Panther couldn't reliably kill it back, assuming the Hellcat stayed still long enough to be hit, which it almost never did. The crews who operated the M18 called it the fastest gun in the West. German tankers called it something else: der Teufel, the devil. August 15, 1944, 14:20 hours, near Luneville, France. Feldwebel Otto Carius didn't believe the reports at first. Carius was a Tiger commander, one of the best in the Wehrmacht. He'd fought on the Eastern Front, knocked out dozens of Soviet T-34s and survived Kursk. He knew how to kill tanks. He knew how to read a battlefield. But the reports coming in from the French country didn't make sense. American tank destroyers, small, fast, lightly armored, were tearing apart panzer columns in broad daylight, not through superior numbers, not through overwhelming firepower, but through speed and positioning. Carius sat in his Tiger's commander seat, listening to the radio chatter, and frowned. "They're exaggerating," he muttered to his gunner. "Americans don't fight like that." His gunner, a quiet man named Krause, didn't respond. He'd heard the same reports. He'd also heard the silence that followed when entire platoons stopped transmitting. Carius keyed his radio. "All units, advance in line. Watch the flanks. If you see movement, call it in before you engage."
The Tigers rolled forward, engines growling, tracks chewing through the mud. Carius scanned the tree line through his optics. The terrain was open here, rolling hills, scattered woods, a few farmhouses. Good tank country. But something felt wrong. "Contact! 3 o'clock!" Carius swung his cupola around just in time to see a blur of movement, something small and low darting across the far side of the field. His gunner was already traversing. "Range? 800 meters. Fire when ready." The Tiger's 88 roared. The shell crossed the distance in under a second, impacting the ground where the target had been half a heartbeat earlier. But the target was already gone. Carius's jaw tightened. What the hell was that? American tank destroyer, Krause said quietly. M18. Carius had heard the name before. He'd dismissed it. Now he wasn't so sure. "Keep moving. Stay in formation." But the M18 wasn't done. It reappeared 200 meters to the left, this time in a hull-down position behind a stone wall. The 76M fired once, a sharp, flat crack that sounded nothing like a Sherman's gun, and the rearmost Tiger in Carius's platoon shuddered to a halt, smoke pouring from its engine deck. Carius's blood ran cold. "All units, engage! Engage now!" 3 Tigers opened fire simultaneously. The stone wall disintegrated in a storm of high explosive and armor-piercing rounds. Dust and smoke filled the air. But when it cleared, the M18 was gone. Carius stared at the empty position, his heart pounding. It had fired, hit, and vanished, all in less than 10 seconds. "Scheisse," he whispered. What German tankers feared most about the M18 wasn't just its speed, it was the unpredictability. When you fought a Sherman, you knew what to expect. It would advance cautiously, it would try to flank, it would take time to position. You could plan for it, you could counter it. The M18 didn't follow those rules. It appeared where you didn't expect it. It fired from ranges you didn't think were possible. It moved before you could react, and it never, ever stayed in one place long enough to be trapped. German commanders began to describe it as ghost armor. Crews reported seeing the same M18 in 3 different positions within 5 minutes. They reported being ambushed by tank destroyers that shouldn't have been able to cross the terrain that fast. They reported losing entire columns without ever getting a clean shot at the enemy. And the psychological toll was devastating. When you saw a Sherman, you felt confident. You had better armor, better optics, a better gun. You could fight it. When you saw an M18, you felt hunted, because the M18 didn't fight like a tank, it fought like an ambush predator. August 19th, 1944, 0620 hours, Dompaire, France. The 113th Panzer Brigade rolled into Dompaire expecting to crush an American reconnaissance screen and push through to the Mosel River. They had 43 Panthers, 15 Panzer IVs, and an entire battalion of mechanized infantry. What they didn't know was that the U.S. 704th Tank Destroyer Battalion was waiting for them. The M18s had been positioned overnight, scattered across the hills overlooking the town, hull down in tree lines and behind farm buildings. They'd been there for hours, engines cold, crews silent, waiting. The Germans never saw them. The first Panther died at 0622 hours, hit from 900 meters by an M18 that fired twice and then disappeared into the woods before the German commander even registered the impact. The second and third Panthers died 30 seconds later, and then the entire ridge erupted. 6 M18s opened fire simultaneously, ripping into the German column from 3 different directions. The Panthers tried to return fire, but every time they got a bead on one of the Hellcats, it was already moving, repositioning, firing from a new angle. The German advance collapsed in less than 20 minutes. By 0640 hours, 12 Panthers were burning. The rest were pulling back in disarray, crews bailing out, officers screaming into radios that no longer answered. The 704th Tank Destroyer Battalion reported 0 losses. For years, the Wehrmacht had relied on a simple truth: German armor was superior. Better guns, better optics, better armor, better crews. It was a myth that held since the early days of the war. But the M18 shattered it. Not because it was a better tank, it wasn't. In a straight fight, a Panther or Tiger would win every time. But the M18 didn't fight straight fights. It fought with speed, with positioning, with hit-and-run tactics that turned the battlefield into a killing ground where armor thickness didn't matter and reaction time meant everything. German tankers began to fear it more than the Sherman because the Sherman was predictable. The Sherman played by the rules. The M18 rewrote them. Oberleutnant Klaus Reinhardt survived the war. He never forgot the morning outside Nancy, never forgot the sound of that engine, never forgot the way the shadow moved, fast, silent, lethal. In interviews after the war, he was asked what he feared most on the Western Front. He didn't say Tigers, he didn't say Shermans. He said one word: Hellcat.